back at the Gracie Barra Mixed Martial Arts Academy. Welcome back to Fight Club. This is round 2. In our opening round, I first gave you the 5 rules of Fight Club. So let's do a quick recap. I reprinted them on this outline because we learn by repetition. I said the first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. Not unless you pass the test of authenticity and respect the rule of confidentiality. Authenticity means your actions and attitude must back up what you say. And the rule of confidentiality means that nothing shared in your group that is of a personal nature may be shared outside your group without express permission from the one who shared it. Now, this is vital to maintaining a safe environment where we can share freely. Rule number 2, no man fights alone. We need other men to achieve our common goal of authentic manhood. None of us is smart enough or strong enough or tenacious enough or resourced enough to climb the mountain of manhood alone. Rule number 3, every man must fight. Real men reject passivity and real men know and name their opponents. We're not here to watch the fight, we're here to engage in the fight. We're going to get specific and intentional. Rule number 4, only true contenders allowed. Real manhood requires a willingness to be real, so no posers and no pretenders. And finally, rule number 5, we said maximum reps are required. We need repetition and accountability, not random participation when it's convenient. We said every man who signs up for Fight Club must show up. Now, if you absolutely must miss a session, then you absolutely must do the makeup, and you must be accountable to your group. If you ignore this, you're going to start to drift and you will tap out. These rules are not just filler. I just didn't slap something on a page to mimic the movie. These rules were developed to help us reach our goal. I also gave you 5 promises. Let's do a quick recap of them. For every man who sticks with me these 12 rounds, for every man who goes the distance, I said, you will receive a broader perspective and a better understanding of the spiritual battle in which we are all engaged. Now, I'll start delivering on this promise in round 3. Promise number 2, if you go the distance, you will discover that you are not alone in the fight. You may think you are, but you're not. You will discover other men who have faced or are facing the same challenges that you are. Some have won the battle, some have lost it, some are still in the middle of it, but we can all learn from and encourage each other. We're not alone in the fight. Number 3, I promise that you will have the opportunity to build strong friendships with other men who are pursuing the same goal. The key word, remember, is opportunity. You have the opportunity to build strong friendships with other men. This is not automatic. It depends on how well you engage. If you choose to be guarded and float in and out of your group, this will not happen for you. The 4th promise, if you go the distance, you will identify key moves to strengthen your core and support your quest for authentic manhood. And promise number 5, if you go the distance, you will develop your own personalized fight plan for facing your biggest challenges to authentic manhood. This is going to be a work in progress in the back of your journal during our time together. I want you to name your opponents, identify areas where you're weak, and then start developing a fight plan. It'll probably be a series of rough drafts that you'll refine over the weeks ahead. But you have the opportunity, there's that word again, to develop a personalized plan that will work for you. Fights are won by effectively addressing weaknesses and building on strengths. Ignoring a weak spot will allow your opponent to gain an advantage. Building on your strengths will allow you to gain a better position and give you an advantage. A win in one area can set you up for a win in another area, then another, and another. It's like the story of a young man from Minnesota who moved to Florida. He went to a big everything under one roof department store looking for a job. The manager asked, "Do you have any sales experience?" The young man said, "Yeah, I was a salesman back in Minnesota." Well, the boss liked him and gave him the job. "You start tomorrow," he said. "I'll come by after you close and I'll see how you did." Well, at the end of the next day, the boss came by. "How many customers bought something from you today?" he asked. The young man said, "One." The boss couldn't believe it. "Just one? Our salespeople average 20 to 30 customers in a day. How much was the sale for?" And the young man said, $101,237.65. The boss said, $101,237.65? What the heck did you sell? The young man said, "Well, first I sold him a small fish hook. Then I sold him a medium fish hook. Then I sold him a larger fish hook. And then a new fishing rod. And then I asked him where he was going fishing, and he said, down the coast. So I told him he was going to need a boat. So he went down to the boat department, and I sold him a twin-engine Chris Craft. Then he said he didn't think his Honda Civic could pull it. So I took him down to the automotive department and sold him a 4x4 Expedition." Well, the boss was amazed. He said, "Let me get this straight. A guy came in here to buy a fish hook, and you sold him a boat and a truck?" The young man said, "No. The guy came in here to buy tampons for his wife, and I said, 'Dude, your weekend's shot. You should go fishing.'" Well, that could be a story about a young man who knows how to sell, or maybe a dude who can be talked into anything. I think there's a crisis in manhood today. Maybe it's because a lot of men are just dudes who can be talked into anything. Boys who need to learn how to fight. Look at your outline. I want to give you 3 reasons why men need to fight. First of all, we need to fight because manhood today has become an abstract concept. It wasn't that way for the Apostle Paul, though. He said this, "When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me." Well, that's a powerful statement. When I became a man, it's compelling, it's definitive, it draws a line. It marks the end of one stage and the beginning of another. But for a lot of guys today, manhood is not that clear. How do you know when you become a man? Is it when you're 16 and you can drive, or 18 when you can vote and join the military, or 21 when you can drink? Is it when you graduate from college after you've worked on your undergrad degree for 7 or 8 years? Is it when you get married? Is it when you have kids? Is it when you buy a house? How do you know when you have become a man? Our uncertainty about this question is reflected in our scattershot approach to markers of adulthood, which leads to the conclusion that we're pretty sure it's not simply a matter of age. Manhood is an abstract concept because our perspective is distorted. One extreme is the idea that men are superior. Even among Christians, the Scriptures have been misinterpreted, where some think that head means boss and helper means slave. I can almost see some Neanderthal with a club over his shoulders, dragging his woman into a cave by her hair. Well, that's a gross distortion of manhood. Nothing could be further from the truth. The other extreme is that men are just a joke. They become a wimpy caricature. There's a vast difference in the honor, integrity, and courage portrayed in, say, the Cartwright men of Bonanza, the pioneers of Little House on the Prairie, or William Wallace in Braveheart, or Claudius Maximus in Gladiator, compared to male characters in shows like Married with Children's Al Bundy, The Simpsons' Homer Simpson, or the Wimps from Everybody Loves Raymond, the Rednecks from King of the Hill. Men have become comic relief. A bumbling doofus next to a confident and strong woman is funny and predictable. It's also a slow and subtle emasculation. Another reason manhood has become an abstract concept is because the biblical role of men has been diluted. I sense it when I talk with couples who are struggling in their marriages and couples who are about to be married. I get immediate approval when I say that the Bible teaches us that men and women are equal. But when I say that it's also clear that men and women have different roles, and the role for the man is leader or head, and the role for the woman is helper, I've seen eyes glaze over as I speak. Then I explain God's blueprint for marriage and how the husband is designed to be a servant leader, sensitive to his wife's needs, willing to put hers above his own, that he is to follow the example of Jesus and love her, as the Scriptures say, as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for it. But at the end of the day, the buck clearly stops with him because his role is to lead. You know, it's interesting that most women love that because God wired them that way, to be a helper to their servant leader. A lot of guys look at me, though, like a deer caught in the headlights. I know what some of them are thinking. They're thinking, dude, I finally found a woman who'll take care of me like my mama did, and you're ruining everything. Most women want a husband who will be a servant leader, but many of them have had to lead by default, and now the roles have been reversed, and no one's willing to take a hard look at why things just kind of feel out of sync. You know, sometimes it's so twisted. I look at a couple and I almost want to ask, so just to be clear, which one of you is auditioning for the role of the groom? For some women, the role of the man has been so diluted, it's inconsequential. New York Times columnist Natalie Angier expressed it this way. She said, "Women may not find this surprising, but one of the most persistent and frustrating problems in evolutionary biology is the male. Specifically, where did he come from and why doesn't he just go away?" Let me give you the number one mistake regarding the roles of husbands and wives. Mistake number one, when the Bible says that men and women are equal, it means that they are the same. That is a mistake. A lot of Christian men and women make that mistake. Think about it for a minute. If men and women are the same, then one of them isn't necessary. The second mistake is also made by a lot of Christian men and women as well. Number two, to love his wife the way Christ loved the church and gave himself up for it, a man will have to give up his role as the leader or head. Well, that's just wacky theology. Jesus left his throne out of his love for us, but he didn't relinquish it. He gave himself up for the church by dying for it. We need men who are willing to die for what really matters, not just physically, but to die to their own needs for the needs of others. Number three, the reason we need to fight is the concept of manhood is so abstract that men are confused. There's a lot of data coming out that's stunning. Boys do poorly in reading in the early grades. They fail in great numbers to graduate from high school. They go on to higher education at lower percentages than young women. And they fail to complete higher education programs at a noticeably higher rate than their female counterparts. I told you in the last session that we're going to hear from a variety of sources so we can gain a broader perspective of certain manhood issues. Whenever I come across a non-Christian source that is in sync with biblical principles, it reminds me that God's truth is universal. So I want to read you an excerpt from an article written by Stephen Zelnick, a member of the Department of English at Temple University and co-founder of the Association for Core Text and Courses. Now, he is a self-described humanist. In his article, Another Reason Why Boys Fail, he writes these words: "I would like to propose a wider perspective by looking for causes in the broad cultural environment. As a humanist who teaches literature and labors as a core curriculum and great books advocate, I premise my thoughts on old notions of human nature, social values, and cultural continuity. Boys, and young men in particular, respond very well to noble purpose, but haven't had much to go on in the past 50 years of our bedraggled history. So many of the young men I see in my classes have mentally and emotionally quit. They've given up. They're not supported by inspiring ideals that help organize and focus their energies. They seem prematurely weary, defeated by obstacles they haven't met yet, bored and restless and merely going through the motions. Some have adopted the cool pose of indifference, and indeed, they really don't care. When I ask them where they're going with their educations, they look perplexed, as if I had awakened them from a deep sleep. Instead of a direction, they tell me this long, wandering tale of possibilities, a tale told with an embarrassed smile and no conviction. With such an abstract concept of manhood, a distorted perspective with diluted roles, men are confused. And without a clear vision of manhood, men are left to drift without an anchor. Proverbs 29:18 says, "Where there is no vision, the people are unrestrained." They have no purpose, no direction. The Apostle Paul challenged a young man named Timothy to up his game and set an example for others to follow. Some were even older than him. In a letter to Timothy, he said this, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity." One reason we need to fight is because manhood has become an abstract concept. Here's another reason. Men are stuck in a prolonged adolescence. The cover of a recent issue of the New Yorker pictures a young man hanging up his new PhD in his boyhood bedroom. There's a cardboard box at his feet, signaling his plans to move back home now that he's officially overqualified for a job. In the doorway stand his parents with a perplexed look on their faces, wondering, how exactly did this happen? Robin Marantz Henig, in an article published in the New York Times, addresses the question, why are so many people in their 20s taking so long to grow up? Her research revealed that 1/3 of people in their 20s move to a new residence every year. 40% move back home with their parents at least once. They go through an average of 7 jobs in their 20s, more job changes than any other stretch. 2/3 spend at least some time living with a romantic partner without being married. Henig suggests that cultural expectations have changed and might be reinforcing the delay. She writes this, "The changing timetable for adulthood has, in many ways, become internalized by 20-somethings and their parents alike. Today, young people don't expect to marry until their late 20s, don't expect to start a family until their 30s, don't expect to be on track for a rewarding career until much later than their parents were. So they make decisions about their futures that reflect this wider time horizon. Many of them would not even be ready to take on the trappings of adulthood any earlier, even if the opportunity arose. They haven't braced themselves for it. Nor do parents expect their children to grow up right away. They might not even want them to. Parents might regret having themselves jumped into a marriage or a career, and they hope for more considered choices for their children. Or they might want to hold on to a reassuring connection with their children as their kids leave home. If they were helicopter parents, that's a term that describes heavily invested parents who hover over their children, swooping down to take charge and solve problems at a moment's notice, they might keep hovering and problem solving long past the time when their children should be solving problems on their own, Henig says. This might, in a strange way, be part of what keeps their grown children in the limbo between adolescence and adulthood." I had to figuratively talk an executive assistant down from a ledge because of something that she was required to do for the boss's college son, a son clearly stuck in his adolescence. He was a summer intern at his dad's company, but he rarely showed up for work. The assistant was required, get this, to take his paycheck to him at his parents' house. It was usually in the afternoon, and the son would still be in bed. There's a movement led by Jeffrey Jensen Arnett, a psychology professor at Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts, to view the 20s as a distinct life stage, like adolescence. When adolescence became an accepted developmental stage, social institutions had to adapt to address the particular needs of 12 to 18-year-olds. That led to the creation of junior high schools in the early 1900s, separating 7th and 8th graders from the younger children in what used to be called primary school. Well, Arnett calls his proposed life stage emerging adulthood. Now, if that theory were accepted, like adolescence, then similar changes would be in the wings. But if it were a true life stage, we would need to start rethinking our definition of normal development and create systems of education, health care, and social supports that take the new stage into account. That's what Arnett is proposing we do, to accommodate and coddle this growing group of 20-somethings who are trying to find themselves. But I think there's a flaw in his theory. The flaw lies in the fact that it's not universal. Not everyone goes through it. You see, to qualify as a developmental stage, it cannot be skipped. Those men who go through it may have been affected by parents who didn't want to let go, moms and dads who didn't know that continuing to bail their children out would prolong their adolescence. For some men, it was just the lack of a healthy role model of what manhood looks like that left a void and left them guessing. I propose, instead of just reacting to what we're seeing, that we can be proactive in addressing the real issues behind the trend, challenging men how to reject passivity and lead courageously. Well, you can call it prolonged adolescence or emerging adulthood or a Peter Pan syndrome for guys who never want to grow up. I think it's a detour that a lot of men take. It's marked by identity exploration, instability, and feeling in between, and self-focus. I read an article about Ben Affleck. He knows that he was one of those guys. Looking back at who he was in his 20s, he said, "I find it tough to like that guy. The truth is, while I may have looked smug in the photos, inside I was insecure and self-conscious. I was naive and stubborn back then. Having kids was a big part of my evolution. That's when I stopped thinking of the world in terms of myself." Becoming a man is something we need to fight for. If you don't win the fight against prolonged adolescence, you'll just be a boy who shaves. Finally, the third reason men need to fight is because the health of our society depends on it. Without a clear understanding of who we are and what we're intended to do, confused men create major problems. After a lifetime of research, the world-famous anthropologist Margaret Mead made this observation as she spanned human history in different cultures and different societies. She said, "The central problem of every society is to define appropriate roles for its men." In the conclusion of Stephen Zelnick's article, Another Reason Why Boys Fail, he summarizes some of the effects of an abstract perception of manhood. He writes this: "The social and cultural atmosphere has been so polluted, one wonders how young people can form life projects that demand decency and tenacious effort. Everything seems to be for sale, and no one is ashamed by it." A recent National Public Radio interview featured a sexual dominatrix who earned praise from the interviewer for her entrepreneurial inventiveness. College campuses promote celebrations of sex. Zelnick says, without the restraint of shame, the encouragement of honor, and the inspiration of noble purpose, none of us can lead fulfilling and happy lives. Young men are more uncertain about sex and marriage than ever. Women have been coached to take the lead and to think they need men about as much as fish need bicycles. They no longer seem to seek male protection and support. Our films and books and TV stories counsel the foolishness of depending on those expectations. This shift to the narratives of distrust robs men of their edge and purpose. Historically, men have been ennobled as protectors and have justified their hard work and sacrifice as heads of families and protectors of their communities. Without that aspiration, young males can aspire to be earners and consumers and lonely foragers in the sexual forest. But that is not the same as being men. Now that's from a self-described humanist. I think he gets it. Do you ever wonder what's really behind all of this uncertainty and confusion about manhood and guys trying to find themselves? By the way, they're not all in their 20s. Many of them are in their 40s and 50s. And they've been married for years. Then one day they get restless and just walk away to find themselves. Are you one of those, well, it is what it is, guys? Or do you wonder what's really going on behind the scenes? I'm not talking about a conspiracy theory. I think there is something more sinister at work, something darker that is undermining our manhood. And if we ignore it, we do so at our own peril. We're going to lay it all out in round 3.